Alrighty. Hi, folks. Welcome back to How to CAD Almost Anything MIT Summer 2026. Today, we are in session 4. As always, because we are asynchronous right now, I don't get to ask you if you have any questions. We'll save those for the in-person session. In any case, today's session 4 it's quite interesting because I get to finally teach about some things that I may have introduced in sessions 1, 2, and 3 that I said, all right, this is going to be useful in order to make this particular feature detail look nicer. But I saved them really for session 4, where now I get to formally speak about these things. And these commands essentially involve symmetry. How can we best leverage the symmetry that you have in an object and use these commands in order to simplify the amount of work that we have to do? What I'm talking about specifically is patterning, things like circular patterns or rectangular patterns or mirroring. Essentially, you draw half and you can mirror something, or you draw a little quarter or a little, angular part of that feature, and then you revolve. Well, you just do a pattern around it. Or, and speaking of revolve, which is what I just wanted to say, is that what if you draw a profile of something and then you create a revolve of that along a certain axis? So that's essentially what we're going to learn how to use today. And to illustrate this set of commands, we're going to design these three objects, which include the maracas, a four-stringed banjo, and a set of wooden bongos. I think each one of these will have us employ our set of tools that we're going to learn today in different ways, and it should show us the different capabilities that we have. In that process, I will also finally get to introduce how to create planes, which are, there's a lot of ways in which you can create them. The difference, whether you use one approach over another one, might depend really on what is your overall goal. What are you trying to achieve? So let's jump straight to Creo right now, where I can continue speaking about all of these things. Alright, so now we're back in Creo, so that means that we can get started with today's session. So I'm gonna start first by doing a demo of the different commands that we'll be employing today, and then I'll get into today's projects. So as usual, we go here to new, and I go to part. I will already call this one maracas, because that's what we're gonna start with later after our demo. We go here to okay, and now we're in our space, and as always, I go here to prepare, model properties, units, and I'm gonna change these to, there we go, okay, close. Perfectly, so that appears like that. So let's start by doing some demos. These are things that maybe you may have seen me already doing in the prior 3 sessions. It's only now that I get to formally introduce these things. So how about we start by doing something? Let's create some figure, and then we'll do a couple of test scenarios where we'll see, all right, this is actually where, using this command might be useful, and this is how we can simplify our life. So suppose that I'm gonna CAD in here. I'm gonna actually start by doing a little Lego brick as an example. So I'll look here, rectangle. I mean, our version of a Lego brick per se. And we're gonna call it like that. I really don't care about the dimensions now. We'll make it that tall. Suppose you have a figure like that, and now we are gonna do a sketch here. And I'm gonna make that circle like that. And we'll make it like that. All right, so first test scenario here where, let's start by first learning how to make patterns. So what do patterns really mean in here? Well, you have something that looks like a brick in here, but you may have seen Lego bricks in the past, and the one that I'm trying to make in here is a 2x4, as an example. So how do you make that? Well, you have this little peg in here. So what you can do is click here in extrude number 2, and then you see how the minute I click in here, this command in there unlocks itself. This is called pattern. So you click in there, and there's gonna be a multitude of different options that you can choose from in here. Well, if you go here to type, in a little bit, we're gonna do the axis. I'll explain what axis is, but now I'm gonna do this one that's called direction. So once I click in direction, it's gonna tell me, all right, click one direction that you want this to go on, and I can say that direction as an example, and then say, I suppose I want in another direction. So we're gonna make a pattern under two directions, in one way and in another way. Okay, so you have those two. So now suppose that in the first direction, I want four of these guys, right? And then you kind of start to see them popping up. It's just that now what we have to do is change the spacing. So if I say 20, you see how now they're appearing. Now I'm gonna revert that direction, and maybe in this side, I will also make it 20, or you could make that 30 as an example. You can play around really with these things. Today I'm not really worried about the dimensions that we are adding to our command, but if I click OK, then what happens is that it generates our Lego brick. So this is the first of the patterns that we're gonna learn today. This is the linear pattern in here. Obviously, this doesn't look quite correct, so I can always right click in here and edit definition, and we can modify some of these numbers. I could make that 30, and now all of the pegs are in there. They're a little bit too close to each other, but that's one of these commands. Good. Now, what if, for instance, you wanted, I'm gonna get rid of this. So this is the Lego brick example. So I'm gonna delete all. Now, suppose that you wanted to make a cake and you wanted to have candles in your cake. So how do you do that? Well, I'm gonna start by making a cake in here. I'll click on OK. Sure. Do you want to cancel? Yes. Actually, let me, you know what? Let me get rid of this guy first. And I'm gonna start by making a new sketch here. So let's make the base of our cake. I'm gonna extrude, and let's make that 100. So now suppose that's like the video again. Let's add candles to it. So I'll go here to sketch here on that face, and I'm gonna add a candle here. Good. And I'm gonna go all the way up to 30 like that. So one approach that we're gonna learn here is, what if I wanted, say it's your 10th birthday as an example, and you wanted 10 of these candles. Instead of having to go all the way around and having to, for instance, do a sketch here and define all of the angles using center lines, and then using those center lines to draw additional circles and you're extruding from there, what if I told you there's a much simpler way of doing that? So now I'll click again on, actually, before I even go to extrude 2, actually, let me show you one thing and you'll see that it's not gonna work, because we go here to extrude 2, then I can go here to pattern, and then instead of choosing direction, I can go axis. The problem is that it wants us to select an axis that doesn't exist yet, because I have to tell it, well, you want to make a circular pattern of this thing, along which axis am I gonna make that pattern? So what I'll do is I'll go here to cancel, and instead I'll go here to axis, that button in there, and I can, for instance, check the circle, right? So that creates an axis that is going to be concentric with our original cake. For instance, if I had clicked in axis and I went there, it would have made it concentric with that. Another way to create an axis is, you have a plane and you have another plane, and the intersection of that plane has an axis that goes through it. So I could, for instance, go here, click on that plane, and then control click on that plane, and it also creates an axis in there. So there's multiple ways of doing it. For now, I'll click here. Now we have an axis. Now, what I need to make sure is that that axis, I'm gonna move it up before the extrude 2. And that's gonna be super important, because if I don't do that, if I don't create the axis before the thing that I want to make the pattern of, it's not gonna even appear as something that we can select. Now I go to extrude 2, go to pattern, then we go to axis, and you see that now, if I go to select item, I can click in here. Good. So multiple things that we can do. For instance, if I go to angular extend, essentially what this allows us to do is to say that I want my 10 candles, and you're gonna make 10 copies of it. This is if you want it as an example, to say something along the lines of, oh, what if, I just wanted to all of them to be concentric and evenly spaced. I could also have said, for instance, that I want my 10 candles, but only taking a wedge of 100 degrees. I'm showing there, that's kind of neat in there too. Or if you wanted a different way of controlling this, in here I can say, well, I want actually the spacing between all of these guys to be 10. Another way of one is like evenly spaced out, the other one is, oh, actually I want them all to be by 10. So it depends on perhaps the information that you have available. For now, we'll go for angular extent and 10, and I click on OK, and it automatically generates a candles in here. So that's kind of neat, but we're gonna take it a step further, because I'm not a fan of these candles. We're gonna make them look prettier, or maybe allegedly prettier. So I'll go here, I'll delete that pattern, and I will actually sketch 2. I will actually get rid of that too. Now, what if I told you that we can make a much nicer design of these ones? And how would you do it? Let's go here to sketch. I'm gonna go to this plane in here, and I'm gonna draw a construction, actually a regular line, that will go all the way like that, just up to that point. And I'm interested on that point specifically. I go there to OK. The reason why I'm doing that is because now I'm going to create a plane that is going to be normal to that point. I want a plane that is going to be right there. You've seen me create planes multiple times in the past. So let's actually do that formally here. So you click in this command that's called plane. And just like before, there's so many different ways of creating planes. For instance, I could select on this face, and I can say that I want a plane that is going to be offset from that face by 20 as an example, or negative 20, if that is the case. Yes. I could also select, for instance, 2 lines, and there's going to be a plane that's going to be created on 2 lines. Or the one that I normally use is this one, where I select that line and I select that point. So now you have a plane that is point normal to that line. Actually, before I do that, let me show you one last thing that you can do, is that I can select, for instance, I don't know, let's see if I find it, that plane as a reference, and then that point. So that I have a plane that is parallel to that plane, but up to that point. So, very, very powerful ways in order to create planes. And we care about planes, and you'll see why in a minute, because it allows us to draw things perhaps in at angles in particular that are not necessarily the ones that are predefined by our set of datum planes that we find in here. So I'm going to click on that point and on that line. So now I'm right here, and I can go here to sketch, over to that plane. And what I can start drawing is a candle. The approach that we're gonna employ here is taking like a 2D cut. So you say you have my finger was the candle. It's as if I'm chopping my finger in half, and I'm only gonna look at a wedge. But then we're gonna revolve that. So what do I mean by that? So let me draw, for instance, a line that, so we are here. So that's like the origin per se. So I can draw a line that goes, what I can do actually before anything is construction, project. I'm gonna project that line, and I'm gonna project that line. I'll go here to, okay, good. That way I know roughly you see what happens when you have a circle and it's projected into that plane, it becomes obviously a straight line. That's circumference. So now I'll draw another straight line that's gonna go from this point all the way there. So now I identified the origin of that point, and I'm gonna start drawing something that will go all the way like that. Yes, I can draw like this. So suppose this was like the base of our candle, and now suppose that I want to do like the fire part of it. Well, I can go here to do a spline. I'm not very good at drawing fire per se. It's more like a Christmas tree to be fair. There we go. I'm gonna click on escape, and now I'm just gonna move some of these points here. That way it looks pretty. Suppose that was your hand, as an example. Then I'm gonna click here in OK. So what you can now do is that you have that profile. So then you go here to where it says revolve, and now I'll click on that. So first I clicked on the sketch that I want to do the revolve. Then I'm gonna select the axis, and you see that now, more than a candle, I have a chess piece in here. So I'll go here to OK. So now you have a piece that looks like that. But now what's cool is that that definitely looks less regular than the things that we've been doing before. And maybe if you've seen the session 3 video, when we were doing the handles or one of the instruments, it was also like a revolve, because otherwise it would have been too tedious to draw it in using a different approach, right? So this is gonna save us a lot of time. So now what I can do, yeah, we have our axis, we have our revolve. So then I can go here to revolve 1. Let's pattern that, and let's go here to axis, select item, let's do that. And now again, it's my 10th birthday as an example. So let's go here to OK. And yeah, now you have all of these candles generated in there. Terrific. Okay, this is very good. Like, but now let's take it one last step further in order to teach you like the last command. This is all really about leveraging symmetry. You're using planes and you have a figure and you're just trying to create different symmetrical aspects of the same thing. So this will be super handy for today's projects. And there's one last thing that rhymes with symmetry, which is how to use a mirroring command, which is that one in there, which again, we've used a couple of times already. Mostly really using when we were drawing sketches, but it's also very powerful here with the features. So suppose I wanted to make a mirror of this thing right on top of this thing. So how would you do that? So let me go here to plane. I'm gonna select this face. And let's say I wanna make it by negative 100. So where does that take us? Okay, that's too much. Let's say 80, 60. I want it to be resting, not necessarily resting on top of that, but I want them to be slightly intersected. So maybe 55. There we go. I think 55 might do the trick. It's gonna be interesting. So now I'll click on my pattern and I'll click on my extrude. And you see that again, all of these areas unlocked. So I'll go here to set mirror. I'm gonna say, right, mirror plane, that in here. So this is gonna look very weird, but again, it's telling you how powerful all of these things are. And I'll go here to OK. And what do you get? Something that is kind of cool. These are like interesting looking columns that you get in there. So this is it in terms of the commands that we'll be employing here. So how to create planes at different angles using, you have that line in there, you just draw a line and you can make always a point and normal. Or you can always select that plane that you already have or a surface and create an offset from that plane. Then how to create revolves, where you're drawing the profile of a figure and you're revolving it around an axis. And then, well, how to do the mirroring, where you have another plane that you're going to use as a reference, and then you select a few features and you mirror them around. And as we saw at the very beginning with the Lego brick, how to create a linear pattern, where you have one figure and you can create multiple copies of the same thing. Good. With all of this being said, I think we're ready to start to put all of this into play by doing our first project, which is going to be really relatively easy, because what we have in here are this set of maracas. And the maracas in here, when you look at a figure like this one, well, what are the things from the set of tools that we just learned that we could employ in here? Well, the first thing is that there's a lot of symmetry. So I can probably start by doing a revolve of a pattern that we can draw around here, and that will give us the base shape. But we're not gonna end there, because other things that you can do is, well, I actually want to add all of those details in there, and there's ways to do that. For instance, all of those little circles, we can probably do like a circular pattern. We're gonna get to that. But then all of those lines, well, you have to be clever about how you are creating the base revolve sketch, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a minute. So you have all of that parts. Then what else you have about the maraca that could be interesting? And then also these M figures. We'll see whether I end up doing these M's, or maybe I might do a slightly different design on these areas in there. Like we shall see, but it's all very similar techniques. So let's get started with the maracas. And I'm not gonna bring a picture in. I'll just draw it using whatever, just my eyesight. So I'm gonna get rid of all of the stuff that we created earlier. Good, even that. There we go. So now let me just Here, I'm gonna go here to sketch perfectly. So now we can start drawing something. So the first thing that I like to do is, all right, let's define. There we go. Let's just define like how tall our maraca is gonna be. So maybe let's click on, okay, here it appears there at 500 as an example. Good. And now using actually, sorry, a bunch of construction lines, I'm just gonna define roughly the side profile, and I want more or less like the rounded part of the maraca to begin at a height of 200. As you can get a picture, those are roughly the proportions that we will be working with. And I want, let's say, the handle to be roughly around here. So I want I should do it like this more than anything. Good. So we're gonna start the handle there. It's gonna go all the way like that. Maybe this might need to become 220 as an example. So what we can start by doing is I'll grab our friend the spline command. There we go. I want now this to be a solid line. So I can start drawing something that looks like that. Good. So now we have our mark, and then obviously we can play around by modifying the position of all of those points. And then I can come with my line, do a straight line that will go all the way like that, and then finish it up with our spline tool and make that straight. And now you see that this is all fully shaded, it recognizes that. There we go. I have this figure in here. So now let's make this, make this a prettier shape, which by the way, the nice thing about 3D modeling is that you can make really whatever design that you like. There's no opportunities here are endless. So if you have a particular maraca design in mind, that is possible too. Maybe what I'm seeing from here is that I think that thickness might be too much. So I'll bring that another 40. So I'm just playing around, really making all of these circles. It would have been easy as well to just do like a semicircle in here, an arch, but that would have been fine. So now I'll click here and okay. So you have roughly a shape that you like. So you go over to revolve and you click on the axis and you see, okay, this is gonna be our maraca, which again, interesting. I'll take it. And it's just like a more like an onion shape. And here, what I might do is, I'm not, I wouldn't say I love this. So maybe I will actually make that. Oh, in here, let me see what I do. I'm gonna actually make that a little bit bigger. Do 40. And I am gonna, wait, I wanna bring some of these points inwards too. That way it looks a little bit nicer. There we go, just like that. It has to look more like an egg. I think that looks a little bit better. So you have this maraca design. Now, how would you and then there's I can actually come down there. Let me just edit that part in here. Let me go. That modified itself. So maybe let me see if I can make that to 50. There we go. Good. kind of actually don't love it. I can just do a good old shape like that, and then we can just revolve. We can do a fillet of sorts in there. And suppose you have a figure like this. This doesn't look perfect because the reality is that I want actually all of these markings to appear. So you have 3 lines there and 3 other lines in there. So how could you do that? Well, you can come here to our original sketch. And now what we can start to draw using construction lines is first, well, roughly, I can kind of, I'm gonna draw where would I want all of these lines to pop up. So suppose I wanted something that looked like this. Let me actually get rid of that one. I want this to be like symmetrical per se. Although you could also make it not symmetrical, that way it looks more like handmade. Again, but really for now it's fine. I'll make those two like equal here. And then I'm gonna draw like another line that will go like that. Perfectly. So you have a set that goes like that. Maybe, let's see. If I can define this distance here to be 40. There we go. Perfect. And now, mm, perfectly. Okay. So suppose you have like, these are roughly the locations of where you'd like the lines to be. So what you can do is now draw a bunch of rectangles. I know this is gonna be an interesting technique, but you will see how it's gonna work out in a minute. And I'm gonna draw them like this. In essence, what's gonna happen is that I just need to have more or less the thickness defined of this area, and you'll see it's gonna make something quite interesting. So I'll just draw it there. I'll just draw one there. The thing is that I would also need to make sure that that is the thickness that we would want the lines to be. So for instance, 2, doesn't matter how big these rectangles are, by the way, it's just, I need them as a reference. And suppose you wanted this one to be a thicker line, it's just the height of the rectangle that I care about. So let's make that 4. Let's make that 2. Okay. There we go, perfect. And let's make that 2. Is that 2? I think given that I will trust that it's 2. Perfect. So now what do we do with these things? And you might be wondering, like, why is he drawing this stuff? It's because now I go say to this one up here. And what you can do is the following thing. I can go to where it says delete segment. I can get rid of a few certain segments. For instance, I can come like over here and I could, for instance, get rid of these ones in there. But you see, like, this is now like a full defined line. But I can, for instance, cut a few of these areas and draw them again, like using a particularly slightly different technique. Or you could potentially like offset things like backwards or forwards, and that will create like a nice extrusion from where you can start to cut things around. So I'm gonna go here to, there we go. I wanna get rid of this area right here. And now what I'll do is like, I'll just draw a straight line. It doesn't matter, like this is good enough. But what I can do is just do a small offset, like the one that it's showing in here. And that offset, in reality, I want that to be 0.1. Like nothing too crazy. And now so that line that I just drew, I'll make it construction, while all of these other lines, I'll also make them construction. So now what we're left with doing is connecting that point and that point, that point and that point. And there you will have like a little extrusion from where you can, for instance, do a cut. Like this is one approach. Another approach is, if that looks kind of weird, I could have also just do it like this, and then yes, you have that distance in there defined as 0.1. Excellent. And now, yes, I'm gonna select all of those guys perfectly. I'm gonna connect that like that, that like that. And obviously this is still not gonna be shaded because I have to do the same thing in all of these lines. So again, I'm gonna start by deleting the segment in all of those lines, and I'm gonna repeat the same process. So let me speed this part up and I'll come back to you in just a second. Very good. So now, as you can see, I finished, and now this became fully shaded because we have, all of the lines are connected, and we got rid of any internal lines that were here. If I click OK, then it generates a maraca, and now it looks, like the more similar to this. Now, the only problem about employing this particular technique in order to make the maraca is just that once you've done all of these little lines and you've edited them, because of having used the spline and having used also that technique where I'm cutting like segments, it's not quite easy to edit these things later on. Just as a heads up. It doesn't matter because this is just an example, right? But eventually, if you really want to have editing powers over the things that you do, well, maybe you would have not used a spline. It would have been better to use a semicircle as an example, something that you could have more control over. But you have something like this. So now suppose that I wanted to add a set of circles around here as an example. So how could you do that? Well, I'm gonna go here to our sketch one. I'm gonna show it for a second because I need to see it. Very good. And excellent. So we have it like that. So now I'm gonna go here to sketch, over to that face, and I need to draw now. I'm gonna actually project that line. I go here to OK, and then I can draw a line. Actually, let me see whether I'm gonna project as well that line too. Very good. So now what we could do, let me see if I can find roughly, well, there's a technique where I can do a line that goes here, a line then that goes from that point to that point. So you see you have two lines, and then I can make that one and that one equal. So it's a weird way of just finding the middle, but it's okay. And I'm gonna just click like that, and then that line I don't need it, but the reason why I created that line in here is because I'll go here to OK. That's, you're not gonna see it yet, but that line is technically there, sketch 2. So what I can do is go here to our friend the plane. So let's see whether, there we go. I'm gonna find that point, and I'm gonna see, watch it. No, that is not what I wanted. I cancel, yes. Let me see. And let me see whether I can hide our figure. There we go. I'm gonna go here to plane, point and line. So now I have plane that is parallel in here. I would, given that it's also parallel to that plane, I could have also selected that plane and made it like that. This is just an example of how you could do this. But okay, it's okay. And now let's show this again. There we go. For some reason this disappeared. I should have clicked here in bodies, and now it will appear. Okay, good. So now I'm gonna start working from here. So I'll go here to sketch all the way there. And now if I can draw, let's see if it recognizes where we are in space. No, so it actually doesn't know. So what I'm gonna do is the exact same procedure as we had before. So if I go over to project, I can now project, for instance, that spline, and you see that now it appears as a straight line. So now it should allow me to select the middle of this line, and I can go, something like that. So suppose I have something in here, I'll make that construction. Let's make that 35. Good. And now what we can do is a little extrusion that's gonna go, let's say, remove, no, actually, we want this to be okay. Let's make that symmetric. That way it goes inwards. And let's go 2. It's okay that it's coming out a little bit because we're gonna modify that later. But I'm gonna leave that like this. I think this is mostly fine. So then what we can do is go here to our friend, where are you? I'm gonna select here. Oh, actually what we should do is I'm gonna come back in time and I go here to axis and I create an axis that will be right in the middle. Okay, good. So now we have our extrude in here. I go to pattern, then axis. I'll select that axis in there and I'll say that I want, let's say 10. How would that look like? Gonna have 10 of those little circles. Now, obviously, this is not what we want, that it's extruded in there. So here's where the magic happens. I go here to sketch all the way in that plane in here, and I'm gonna project that line. So now what we'll do with that line is that I'm gonna do an offset of that line. I'll click on OK, and I will offset that by point, 0.1, which is really, it's a minimal amount, but it's sufficient. And now let me just hide that like that. And now I can just do a big rectangle that covers this area that I'm offsetting like that. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a fully connected rectangle. And I'm gonna click there in OK. So what we can do is another revolve. So we have that sketch. Oh, well, actually, for the axis, I kind of wanted that axis instead, but we're gonna remove material this time around. So look at what happens. So I think what we need to modify in just a second is that I'll go here to OK. So it didn't quite create the intended results because the offset that we had planned for was not sufficient. So if I go back to sketch number 1, that sketch, and I edit this, let me see what happens if I go for 0.2. Oh, I see. Because I think that circle in there, we should have sent it more. So I'll go here to OK, doesn't matter. And now I'm gonna go back to, let me go back in time. Can I? Yes. So you know what? We're gonna make that 5. Because I need that, I wanted that to intersect. Otherwise, this wouldn't work. Go here to OK. And now this works. So this is looks good. So this is like a technique, right, in order to more or less achieve the results that you want. It's not perfect. And the problem really with Creo is that sometimes there's commands that they do have something that's called a wrap command, where, for instance, you're able to draw a sketch and it's able to wrap around the surface. But there's a few problems. First, it doesn't work quite cleanly. I've used it in the past already, and it doesn't. I prefer more this technique here in Creo. And the second thing is that whenever you have a surface like this one, which is a spline, sometimes it's actually better. Like it wouldn't actually, wrap wouldn't even work on a spline. It works more on surfaces that are like defined by circles, as an example, more circular in nature. So this is in here. So suppose now that you wanted to make now a pattern of triangles up there. How would you do that? So let's go back to our sketching here, right there. So let's try to draw a triangle that would go in here. So how would you do that? Let's go here to project. I want to project that line. We're going to use this always as a reference. And now let's draw. Actually, let's continue drawing as in construction mode. Very good. Just like that. And now let's just draw a figure that will look like that. And then okay, suppose you have a triangle that looks And then we can obviously do the same thing down there. Actually, we can do that right now. I can go here to project or that line. Excellent. That construction line. Let's see whether it recognizes. There we go. Excellent. Now let's draw like this. Good. You have these two like arrows per se in here. So now I can go here to okay. And now we're gonna do the exact same technique where I'm gonna extrude in the opposite direction inwards. It's something that looks like that. And I have like a little bridge of sorts. It kind of looks neat in there. And then we're gonna draw another pattern. But now what I can do is select extrude to, then go to pattern, then go here to axis. We'll select A3. And here and we can do the same thing where I'll do angular extent and we want 10. At least let's see what happens. Now we have like a little bird nest more than a maraca in here. But same technique as with the circles. What I can do now is go here to sketch on this face. And now I'm gonna project again that line. Actually, no, that is not the line that I wanted. I wanna project, there we go, our original sketch lines. Wait. Excellent. Okay, good. So now we can do an offset. Now we have to be a little bit more careful because with this offset, there we go. It's just whenever we do the cut, because of the fact that this is kind of like perpendicular, we'll just have to be careful. Right? You'll see what I mean. I go here to 0.2, and now let me do another offset. Oh, not that of that line by 0.2. Good. So what I'll have in here is that I will kind of continue the line and I will go like this. Let me go generously like that. And I'm gonna continue the line like that, and then boom. Excellent. And now this line, I will make it construction. Great. So we have one profile in here. Now that I will make it construction, then I go here to line and I want to continue the line, making sure that it's tangent like that. Great. Then we make it sufficiently big. And let's do the same thing in here where we continue going up. Oh, I think that those lines disappear, so I'll make them again. Excellent. Good. We have profile number 2. Okay. Moment of truth. Will this work? Well, we'll go back to revolve. For our axis, we'll select A3. So you see, right, you have like two hats that are coming here, but I'll go to remove material and go to okay. Very nice. It actually did do the trick. So that's great. And it kind of gives it a little bit of a texture, right? You could imagine this being something that, it's hand painted. So it's extrude outwards. So now we have that design. What about something that we could do here? So suppose I wanted to do straight lines, right? That we have like essentially all patterns drawn in here. So I'll go over to sketch and we'll start again from this one in here. And this is honestly the easiest case because I'll project that line. Great. Let's do construction as always. Now let's draw a rectangle that will go like that. And honestly, yeah, we can leave that as a 7, maybe 6. There we go. And we can do a ton of these lines. So actually, if we did 10, we're gonna do 20 of these ones. Great. So okay, actually not okay because I'm gonna do the one in the bottom as well. And notice that I'm not quite mirroring things. It's not that I've created a plane here and I'm mirroring downwards because this is not exactly a regular shape. So it wouldn't work as neatly. So I have that line, I go to OK, then construction, choose rectangle here again. All right, so it looks exactly there, good. So let's extrude in the opposite direction. Let's go here to OK, perfectly. You have the sufficient extrusion. Interesting that it's the same plane. You see what I was saying about the symmetry. That face technically and that face, they're all coplanar. Okay, doesn't matter. Like that's just a fun fact. So I'm gonna go to extrude free, pattern, axis. This guy in here. We'll do angular extend, and let's do 20. So you see 20 of these guys popping up. Very nice. Actually, I kind of like the look that it's taking in here. And now we'll go here to sketch, overdo this face in here. And now it's kind of like the last step that we have remaining, where we're gonna project that line and we're gonna project. Oh, I should have hit control, which I did not. So I'm gonna hit control now. Okay, so now we have our two lines. So we'll go over to offset. Where are you? Here. We're going okay, even though we want that to be 0.2 to be consistent with what we've done. And there we go, construction. Same thing here, offset with that line. Great. Okay. Construction line. And now we're gonna extend that line in that direction. Good. We're gonna extend that line. Great. And now we'll come like this. We'll come. Oi. Perfect. And now we're gonna complete the polygon. Great. Let's do the same thing up here, where we'll come with a line. Excellent. We'll do another line up here. Make sure you're not eating into the actual shape, right? Because otherwise that would be a problem. Excellent. Okay. So last moment of truth where I go over to, where are you? Revolve. Axis, we're gonna do a free, remove material. There you go. And now the nice thing about this is that if you wanted to edit the number of triangles or the number of these little pins or circles that you have, that's easy to do. You can always come back and modify that number by going, for instance, here, edit and saying I want 30 instead. And you have that right there. And in fact, now it kind of looks like a house. So, to wrap things up with this piece, why don't we do a final round in here? Maybe this one, let's make that 10. Oh, it looks kind of neat, to be honest, the way that it's running there. And let's hide these planes and sketches. And that plane in there, and let's color this. So if we look at the colors in here, let me bring the picture. What we have is red, yellow, yellow, orange. So let's actually, you know what? I'm gonna start by going here to view. Let's find a nice piece of wood. So pine. For the surfaces in here. Great. And honestly, that's good. And now we're gonna color. Let's find an orange in here. So I'm gonna go over to, let's see, where are you? Colors, paint. Here, so I suppose I wanna start with this red. So red was, let me see. Well, I'm glad that it allows me to select excellent. So we'll do like that. Now, you can always come back to the appearance, right? But this is like metallic. What if I wanted just like a regular? Let's see if there is, what's legacy in here? No. Well, you can do mate as well. Let's see how that look like. Let me add mate in there too. Good. It doesn't look too bad. What I would like to do is more appearances. And I'll call this orange. Let's see what happens. I'm just playing around here by modifying some of these numbers. We go here to okay, close. And what was orange in here? It was the middle. Excellent. Now the circles will make them green. So let's go. Now I kind of do not like that color too much. So you know what? I'll edit the appearances of this one. There, I'll just make it a little bit darker. Close. What else do we have? We can make these lines white and those lines violet. Why not? So let's go here, do normal other appearances. Which I kind of like. Okay, we'll actually do it like that. Close. Of the maraca, and now let's make these two white. Then what other color am I missing? I think yellow. Actually, we could make that blue now that I'm thinking about it. See. Do you have here like a funky looking maraca, to be honest? This is it's kind of neat. I mean, maybe the choice of colors could have been better, but this is, a technique. At least the most important thing is illustrating how you make all of these different patterns in there. So I'll stop here for now, and we're gonna continue in just a second with our next project. And now we're going to continue with another fun instrument, which is the banjo, in particular, a 4-string banjo in here. So this is, I believe it's the last string instrument. Actually, I'm kidding. The harp is also, it has strings, but it's one of the last ones where we're going to use the same technique as we've done in session 2 and session 3 in terms of, getting this picture, bringing it into our environment, then we're going to trace it all around, and then we're going to start giving it volume. The difference this time is that we're going to spend more time like this. We already have a lot of experience making the top part. This is essentially an ukulele. In fact, I would have also brought the ukulele, like stuff that we had from before, and just imported it here and combined it. The fun will be in creating this area in here, and that's what we're gonna spend some time doing today, because we're gonna create like a nice pattern where we have this is called the banjo, like the tail. Actually, the banjo head in here. So we're gonna bring this and we're gonna first create like a regular geometry, and then we're gonna add all of these different hooks around it, and we're gonna use a combination of this picture alongside this one. Well, this is the bottom side. We will need this later, but this is another picture of the hook That's the bridge. It would be that piece in there. But really this is the one that is a nice top view. So honestly, we're gonna start with the regular process in here, where we're here in Creo, new, part, banjo, okay? And now, as always, let's change here the units, because why not? That way we have those here, okay, close. Perfect, that should be changed. And now we'll go over to view, model display, images, import that face, desktop, Creo files, and we have Banjo top. So we're gonna bring pictures both for this side and also for the bridge when that time comes. Okay. So now what I'm gonna start doing, and this is where I'm gonna speed it up in just a minute, is that I'll start doing a sketch, multiple sketches, and I'll start drawing the overall outline of this thing. So we'll take it from there, and eventually I'll come back to you once I start adding volume. In particular, the part that I wanna place more time explaining is this area in here. But then the other part, you've seen me doing that already in the past, like nothing new in that area, but more there. Actually, I'm gonna check at the picture. Yeah, there's like a nice, I don't know, triangular piece that goes there. We'll see. I'll draw it. Let me just look at the backside. I'll draw it anyways. We'll take it from there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our banjo. Alrighty, so I think this is the base sketch of our banjo in here. So I'll go here to view, the model display images, and now we don't need that anymore. So we can leave this as is. So we can start by adding some volume and building our figure overall. So I was just taking a look at some parts in here. So we're gonna start by building this. In like it would be like the tambourine part of the banjo, which we know like this is the way it looks like from the top side, and then in the bottom side, apparently it looks. Let me see if I find that other picture again. It looks like I thought it was hollow, to be honest. In fact, I haven't really seen a banjo in real life, but it just happens to be completely covered with a piece. So that's completely fine. Nothing that we wouldn't be able to model. So we will start by drawing. We can start by doing that outer circle in there, and then doing like a little rivet in there for this metal piece in here. So how do we do that? Well, suppose that this was the entirety, this is like the bigger diameter of of the circle, then that would correspond to that one. So I'm gonna assume that that circle in here, that's gonna be that one in there. Okay, so I'm gonna here go to model, then actually maybe I might model it slightly differently, but we'll see. Go here, sketch, and now I will go here to project this guy in there. But at least I have a reference, and now I'm gonna start by drawing a quick circle that's gonna be roughly in the middle of those two. Like that's kind of what we would want, to create that offset effect in there. Maybe even just like that. Good. And we are gonna bring that up by, let's say, no, 20 is certainly too little. Let's say 30. I mean, 30 should be fine. Okay, we're gonna leave it at 30. So this is, again, like it's like the inner part of this piece. So if we wanted to continue with our next sketch, I'm gonna do now a sketch on that face in there, good. And now what we're gonna add is that little design in there. So it's like almost colored in two ways in there, which I'm not sure whether it's because if I find another, actually this doesn't really help us overall. That may as well be like a fillet. So maybe I'll just draw something that's gonna be, let's see. So I wanna make it as thick, maybe a little bit thinner. So I'll go here to project as a construction line there, good. And now we're gonna draw another circle. I could also have done an offset here too, but that's gonna go maybe up to there. Okay. And now we're gonna extrude upwards by, say 5. So 5 is too much, let's say 3. Excellent. I think that's fine. And then if we wanted to do that effect that we had in there, we can do, let's say 2. Oh, well, that should be too much. Oh, I see what's going on, because I need to make this like a 2x1 case in here. So I make like a 0.1. Which dimension is, no, I am doing the wrong size. There we go. So that might actually work. That's too little, but we can say 0.5. Excellent, there we go. And this we can bring it by 1.5. That way it looks, kind of like that shape in there. Maybe I'll bring it, give it as 1. Good. And I just want to look one second at the bottom part, because it's difficult to see whether, yeah, it seems that you can kind of see, what, I'm gonna add a little effect in here where I'll go here to sketch here on that face, and I'm gonna project actually no, I'm gonna project those 2 circles. I'll say okay, and I'm gonna come down minimally by 0.5, and let's revert the direction. And that's too much, let's do 0.1. That way it's like, okay, this is like the bottom part, it's covered, and then you could add like a couple of screws in there to make it seem more realistic per se. Is that fine? Yes, I think it will be fine. Okay, good. So let's continue onwards to the top side in here. So now looking at our picture, so we have to create like those rivets in there. So this is obviously like the top face of our figure. So this is gonna come up by a little bit upwards, and then it's gonna come there. So let's start by drawing first the outer circle. So we're gonna do sketch, sketch, like that. And now we're gonna project. Now finally we can use that one. And we are gonna bring this one down. Let's say by 10. That might be too much. So maybe 7. And that is also kind of indicative of the fact that maybe we should make this a little bit more. Honestly, I mean, this is gonna be fine. We'll do okay. And now that we have that, we are gonna make a little cut in there. So I'll go here to sketch, sketch, excellent. And I'm gonna actually project that guy in there. And I'm gonna project this guy too. Okay. And I'm gonna remove material by 6. Like that. Good. Then we're gonna round all of this stuff and it's gonna look much nicer. But from there, and then we are gonna bring this piece upwards by a little amount. So we're gonna go here to sketch perfectly. We'll go here to, we'll project as always, and now we'll do another circle. It's gonna come like that, and we can make that. Actually, that's too much. Let's see whether I can define that distance in there to be 2. I think this should be good. Okay, and we're gonna extrude that by 2. Yeah, I think that should be fine. Okay, excellent. So now that we have this piece defined, we can do a few rounds, fundamental rounds that we need to do. Maybe that's too much. So let's do 0.75. That way we leave a little bit of space. We'll do that one there too, perfectly. So hopefully now we have that piece drawn in there. Yes, it looks roughly fine. What I'm wondering is maybe that one should be less. Maybe that should be like a 0.5. Oh no, that one is fine. Sorry. It's really this one, the one that I'm gonna change. I'll leave it at 0.5, that one 0.5, perfectly. Okay, so you have, the metal piece in there. And to add just another tiny visual effect, I wanna go here to, well, first to sketch over here. And we're gonna do, yeah, a projection of this line and that line. Okay, then we're gonna do a tiny little circle that's gonna go like that. I think that's fine. Honestly, this is more for like visual effects. And this area we're gonna extrude by, let's do 2. Wait, doesn't like that. Okay. We remove material. There we go. Good. The reason why we did that is because now I'm gonna chamfer that just like we did before, let's say with a 1. This technique that we're doing here, by the way, kind of looks like the top side of a Coke can. If you've ever like seen some of my videos designing some of that, but there you're leaving, it's just like a tiny bit of gap that you can kind of see in there. It's a visual effect. Honestly, this chamfer, I'll delete it, and I'm gonna make it round with a 0.5. It's just tiny details, but to make this a little bit more realistic. In fact, I might even come back here and I don't know, let's see whether I can drag that even closer. Excellent. Just like that. Okay, so we got that base piece there. Meanwhile, as for this, honestly, let's see whether I can just kind of round that. Yeah. Maybe not that one, but definitely in that part. Although, I don't think it would look bad like that. Let's see whether I might make this 0.1. There we go. I'm gonna change that to 0.2. Okay. So we got our piece in here. So these are bundles. Now let's actually start doing, let's do some patternings in here. So we can start by drawing some of these pegs. So I think we're mostly satisfied with the outer shape. So we can start doing that piece in here. So how do you go about that? Well, it's kind of difficult to see, so I'm going to use my interpretation. So I'm going to use that peg in there, but there's like a little piece that comes out from there, and then it's around, and then there's a little cut, and then you have like a pin that attaches. So my approach for doing this will be as follows. I'm gonna come over here, and since we conveniently have that line drawn out, I go here to plane, and I will click on that line like this, point that line, and now we have an angle plane that is right there. And you will see that afterwards, I'm gonna make like a nice pattern of all of these things. So go here to sketch. Very good, so it automatically recognizes that I'm here. Excellent. So now what I can do is, let's see where is my origin. So it puts my origin there, which is not necessarily what I wanted. So let me see whether there's a way to project this line, but it wouldn't because this is just normal. Let me see what happens if I project that other line. Okay. So at least this one will be useful because what I want is that point in here. So I'm gonna start drawing a line that will go all the way up like that. But I kind of want to identify this area in here. So honestly, I might make that, let's say, all right, suppose you wanted your pin to be roughly here. So I can start first by, I'm not gonna overcomplicate my life. I'll just start by drawing a rectangle in here that will come like that. And we will honestly kind of eyeball these dimensions, but we can say that's a 6, and that's gonna be a 10. Here, and that looks roughly even, maybe at 12.5, to be honest. I mean, that looks fine. Okay. So now we are gonna extrude, let's say, symmetrically 8 and 8. Actually, I think that might actually be, no, actually we need to bring it out, let's say 10. Maybe say 12. Okay, good. So we got that part in here. So now let's do a sketch that's gonna go on this face in here. And what we need to do is, you see that there's like a little wall that comes approximately here. Actually, it's kind of more than a wall. I could just draw it approximately. It's like a spline that is coming down and doing like a little cut. So I can draw a spline that will go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Doesn't really matter, right? This is our interpretation. And you can leave it like that. And then let's do a cut from here. Let's do up to reference, remove material. Great. So now I have a piece that looks like that. And now we're gonna start rounding a lot of these areas in a minute. But then one last thing that you can do is another cut that's gonna come here from the top, where I'm gonna come like this. So the way that this seems to work is that there is like a, I don't know, let's say that I'm gonna do a projection of that line. And now I'm gonna connect these two like this. Then I'm gonna do a little rectangle that's gonna come like that, X, and boom. So that was 6, then we'll make this 4. And we can remove material. I'm gonna say to reference up to here. Perfect. Well, maybe it might be necessary now that I'm thinking about it to extend that a little bit. So I might do that too. Maybe, oh, we get rid of this bigger in here. Let's make it bigger actually. This is that as 4. And let's make that 8. It's okay if it goes a little bit deeper. Just like that. Oh, interesting that it's still, it, I'm just gonna, in that case, I'm just gonna play around, drawing a figure there we go, 4. I'm gonna leave that as is. I see, I think I know what's going on. It is really a function of my 2 reference point. So instead, I will just make this, let's see what happens. I make that a variable. Oh, over direction. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. Perfect. Okay, I think this looks roughly like what I want, so I can start by doing a couple of rounds. So let's say that's a 2. In there, maybe a 3. Yeah, like that. That way it's gonna look more like the piece that we want to make. Excellent. Good. And what about, can I round that? Yeah, very good, very good. Perfectly. We have those edges in there. Okay. What I'm wondering now is whether I'm gonna do a sketch where I'm gonna, I kind of don't want those edges to be seen. So I'm just gonna extrude. Let's see if I can do to reference up to that point. Would that work? Okay, actually, yes, that looks a little bit nicer. I'll do the same thing here. Doesn't matter because eventually what's gonna happen is that we are gonna make a pattern of all of this stuff. So hopefully, if everything goes well, it will pattern correctly. If not, we might need to replicate a bunch of these things again. So we'll see. To reference up to that point. Okay, good. So we got our piece in here. So maybe the last thing that I might do is a little, well, that's too much. 5.5. There we go. And can I do it there too? I would need to do it here as well. What would that look like? No, I'll just do it here instead. Okay, good. So we got more or less that piece of the banjo. So now we can add the stick that would come out there, and it's gonna connect all the way to Darcy. So we're gonna make that actually, instead of doing it as a circle, let's draw it initially as a rectangle, and then we're gonna round all of those edges as we go. So what we can do is now, let's see, what would be the best approach here? So I'm gonna create actually, I'm gonna do a sketch in here, and suppose that you want this to happen from the very middle, right? Which is would be that point in there. So now I can go here to okay, plane, point and line. And now you have a new plane that is right there. So what you can do is, well, first I'm gonna start by drawing a bunch of lines that I'm gonna essentially represent what this is gonna be doing, right? Like you have the hook that comes like that. What could be useful in here is to, there we go, just come like that. So this is honestly, there we go. That is a center line. Now we would need to offset these things in both directions. I'm gonna leave this as is. There we go. And now I can start actually drawing something. Come a little bit upwards, and I'm kind of doing this visually, to be honest. I could, yes, like it's fun. I kind of, I don't really care whether it intersects or not. Uh, but there we go. Make the line come just straight like that, and then we're gonna connect it there. Very good. I'm gonna move that like that, and let's give these some numbers. So that can be a 1, which means that now we can draw another line that's gonna come like that, a little more towards the top. Oy. Excellent. The question is that I want this and that to, oy. There, well, let's make that a 2. The problem is that, oy, let's make that 22. And here that way it doesn't move, and now I should be able to make that a 2. There we go, perfect. But if that was variable, things were gonna all move around. We're almost there, and I'm just gonna stylistically look. You see how there's like a little cut, and that is thin, so I think that's gonna be fine. And then, yeah, but you know what I'm gonna do? I want to go here, do perpendicular, and make these two perpendicular. I'm gonna come like that. And obviously, yes, we're gonna round that part. We're gonna round it here too. Yeah, and I think this should be mostly okay. Excellent. All right, so now that we have this done, now we can get a little bit more creative by looking at this line here and that line in there, and we can do a bit of a more stylistic, yeah, maybe something like that. There we go. And then, you know, the bottom side, I have an idea of something that I want to do. But I'll go here to, no, see, okay, maybe this might be too much as a 2, so maybe I'll make that a 1.5, to be honest. Okay, so we have our overall base figure in here. So I'll go over to extrude, symmetric. Well, not 1, let's do 2. Then we have our figure in there. Excellent. So now let's come over to round. First things first, let's round that appropriately to do a 2. Let's do the same thing over here. No, not there. It's gonna eat into that. So let's see what happens if I do a 1. Okay, that's better. Perfectly. Then I'm gonna come. Yeah, so I'm just playing around here with the settings. So I'll do that, like I'll speed it up in a second, and I'm gonna come back to you once I'm ready to start patterning this thing around. Alrighty, so now we're back here. It just so happened that when we were doing that chamfer a minute ago, well, more than a minute ago, it all crashed, which was extremely unfortunate because I had to remake all of this again. So this is a PSA for you to always save your files, which is in fact what I'm gonna do right now. That way we don't lose all of this stuff. But we're roughly at a point I kind of remade it based on what I remember. So it was like here. So now we're gonna start doing a couple of rounds in here. So that would have been like a 2. Then so I'll leave that as okay. Then over here, let's see if I find that edge. It's kind of actually kind of hidden. There we go. We were gonna make that one 1, just like that. So extremely subtle. Then it was in that particular edge where it all crashed. So let's see what happens if we make that 2. Yes, it's like a nice uniform geometry in the air. We can make all of these areas like that. And now what we can do is, well, that's too much. Let's make that a 0.5 and a 0.5, just like that. So we have like a little wedge that is coming like that. And then we're gonna draw like some nuts that are gonna go down there. So we got our overall piece like that. So maybe what we can do is add a little chamfer, a little circle over here to make this. Yeah, I think brown in that face, and then maybe then select it here. This should be good and good. So this is the overall appearance of our piece. I feel like we could make the interior of this thing like a little bit bigger, but I'm kind of all right. I think I will leave it like this. Now, so let's go here to sketch over to the bottom side, and we're gonna draw a hexagon in here. So we were roughly, what we had, it was this line. Let me make that construction. And then what we were working off from here. So technically the origin of that rectangle is that point in here. So what we can do is go here to, let's see if I have, where are they? Mhm. But I cannot find it right now specifically, so I think I'll just draw it by hand. So it's not the end of the world. So we can go here. So how would you do a figure like that? Well, I'll draw it this particular way. You have something that looks like that. I mean, actually, honestly, the way to do it is draw circle construction, and suppose that's as big as the circle is gonna be. Then draw what would be a wedge, and maybe make, say that has to be, if we're gonna, yes, that should be 60, and the angle between here and here has to be 60 as well. There we go. And we're gonna make these 2 construction, and then we'll draw a line that will go like that perfectly. Okay, good. So now we are gonna kind of repeat this pattern a few times. So we have that part. So what we can do is draw another line that's gonna come like that, and then just draw. There we go, just like this. Boom. So what? 1, 2, 3. Mirror around here. Excellent. Good. So now I can extrude that downwards by maybe 5, honestly. Actually, that's too much. Let's do 2. And to make it look pretty, we'll draw a small circle here that will act as like the head of a little nut. So this is honestly the first time that we're doing nuts, in anything that we're drawing. But at least you can see how things are, like you would adjust things in there, right? So you have that piece in there, which all allegedly would connect over to that piece. Even though now that I'm looking at this piece, another thing that I'm realizing is that it's not quite, you know what, I want to come here to the sketch over to my piece. And I think that what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw a big rectangle that will go all the way from here, just like that. Excellent. Let's make that, let's do 15 perfectly. We're gonna extrude that, but let's say, no, 2 would be too much. So let's say 1.5. 1, good. Now let's see whether I can now chamfer that edge, will make it double. So let's see. Double. So we'll make that 1 and we'll make that like 10. That way it's gonna come, that's the part where it becomes thin. So we'll leave it like that. Good. And now what I'm wondering is what will happen if I come there with a 0.5. No. Oh, but at least I like it a little bit more as that piece. The one thing is that maybe I might need to move the nut a little bit more to the side. So to do that, we're gonna go over to here, extrude, and yes, this is not gonna, it's not gonna like it that I'm gonna move it like that. Let's make that a construction. Then technically, let's see whether I can make them all equal. Wait, and do. Can I make that equal and equal? Hmm. Okay, there we go. So I was really just playing around, but again, PSA to save your file. So now that we are at this stage, so let's actually do something cool with it. So I'm gonna go here to, actually what I should have done from the very beginning is that I believe our very first piece that's gonna be extrude 9. I'm gonna come back all the way there. I just created an axis, so I'm gonna create an axis. It's gonna go here. So now you see that goes in the middle. Perfect. So now I can come back in time, and everything that was created after the axis, that's what I'm gonna pattern. So it's actually something useful, right? Because then it will help me better select. So I go to all of these little things. I'm gonna select them one by one. There we go. Let's see whether, or maybe we might need to do them in batches. So let's see how that's gonna work. So
Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really close to 1,000 subscribers, so if you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, that would be really awesome. And if you're interested in learning my arrangements, I post my tabs to a Patreon, which I have listed down below. So click on that if you're interested. Thanks.
alrighty, so that took more time than I had originally anticipated just to make those patterns. But it just so happens that whenever you use that command, it only lets you select a single feature at a time, which is why it's been a little bit tedious like this. But well, now assuming that this is fine, then there's one last thing that we can do, which is we have this side, we have to mirror it over to the other side. So let's go ahead and create a new plane, which I'm gonna create a line in here. Let's draw something that goes like that. And then just a regular line that will go like this. Good. So then I go over to plane and I'll click on that line and that point. There we go. Good. By the way, I'm gonna hide that because I don't need it. So we are there. So moment of truth is whether technically, if I select all of these features, see automatically the command, once you select more than one feature, that blurs itself. It doesn't allow you, but mirror is still there. So we're gonna hope for the best, folks, in here, because you never know. Sometimes rounds and the chamfers, they may complicate some things. But okay, so all of these guys, I'm gonna select them like this. And the question is, will the mirror work? We'll see. So we got that. Then that in here, it regenerates. I don't seem to see why there's something going on in here. Alrighty, that was a lot more work than I was intending to do for this banjo. I thought making all those patterns would have been a walk in the park, but here we go. I think the lessons learned from here is that use the patterning and the mirroring command with caution. You may not be able to mirror or pattern things in batch. You might need to do it in features, and especially as it pertains to things like the rounds. Like obviously, I think this looks nice. Okay, I mean it's a decent model. But to be honest, like look at the amount of like the size of this feature tree is insane. So definitely save all of your stuff. So now I think comes the relatively easier part of today, which is just finishing up the banjo by doing the strings and all those pieces in there. So from now onwards, I'll speed up again. And this is probably gonna be it because this is gonna be like the technique that I employed when we were doing the ukulele the previous time. So let's go ahead and do that. Alrighty, folks, so there we go. This is the completed banjo. Overall, a lot of work, especially at the beginning, trying to get the head part right. But I think overall the look looks mostly fine. So I call this a satisfaction. I'm satisfied with this result. So well, stay tuned now for the next project in just a moment. Thank you. Alrighty, so now we're gonna do our last project, which is the one that you can see right here in the screen. These are the bongos. Now, the bongos hopefully shouldn't be too difficult to do because we can just do one of them and then mirror it along there, even though we have to be careful as always with the sort of things that we mirror based on our experience making the banjos just recently. But in order to make the bongos, I realized that it's gonna be super convenient if I teach you one more command, which is how to use sweep. I've used sweep a lot of times in the past to make notably the strings of all of our stringed instruments. But I've never formally introduced it. So I'm going to introduce it now, and then I'll probably introduce it again in the next session, which is going to be the one where I formally have to speak about sweep. But for now, the reason why I want to bring it in this particular project is because if you look at that piece in here and also that piece over there, that can be very easily done using a sweep. So that's why I think it's going to be convenient to do it right now. But in essence, I'm going to start by drawing a circle, which is going to be that one in there. And then we can do maybe like a revolve in order to get, that tiltedness in there for that cylinder. And then we're going to bring the little drum part in here. What I would like to see maybe is, if I look at a picture of bongos, I'd like to see at the bottom side of them to see, yeah, we might make them like that, even though, yeah, these look symmetrical, right? So we can just make one and again mirror it in there. We will make a ring, we'll have that sweep in there, then one of those pieces, a little nut, and then just a little rounded edge in there to wrap it up. I just want to see how it looks like on the bottom, right? Because I'm not particularly sure. Um, and by bottom, I mean there. And also, another question I have is, are these hollow? Let's see, bongos, bottom. So yes, so that's an indication for that. So I'm gonna assume, if it's a new tab, I'm gonna assume that they're hollow. So that's an important thing. And then I wanna see whether I can find another picture. Oh, this is the one that I was looking for. Let me open image here. And open image here. So what I wanna look at is this. Okay, so there's like it comes out by a little bit. I see the same thing in there. Okay. Yes, really to understand like how this I guess piece of cloth is being pressed into the actual bongo. So it seems like a little hat, and then you have this piece in there coming down. Yeah, okay. I think I have a general idea of the approach that we can take in order to do this. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'll probably start here by going to new, then part, and let's call these bongos. We're gonna be back here, and I go here to File, Prepare, Model Properties, and I'll change our units as always. I'll do centimeter, then set, okay, close. So it confirms in there. So I'll go here to close, and now let's start building. So I'll go here to Sketch, over to this face, and here we're not gonna really use an image. I think we can eyeball most of this stuff. So I'll do a circle, and actually, an even better approach than this, yes, I'll sketch. I'm gonna do a revolve from the beginning. So I'll start maybe from here, doing a sketch in this face. And you can see that goes straight, then it's tilted at an angle, and then it comes a little bit to the side, and then there's a little bit of protrusion in there. So let's see. So I'm gonna start by doing first a line that will go all the way to the top. And then we're gonna roughly get the dimensions of our bongo. It's okay if it's really our bong at the end of the day, so we can make it slightly differently, not a problem. So then let's draw a construction line that would go maybe all the way up to here. Then we can obviously modify some of these parameters, right? If we don't like them. And then it comes a little bit inwards like that. Or maybe let's draw. Yeah, okay. Let's draw it maybe this way. Good. And see how it's like a little bit angled in there. Then we're obviously gonna chamfer some of these things. So maybe let's modify some of these numbers to look a little more consistent. So make that 10. Let's make that 30. Actually, 25 should be fine. Let's make that 160. Let's make that, honestly, we could do it 162. Let's see. Actually, I think it might be less from looking at that from here. Well, maybe we could do that 140. That's a tiny bit less than 30. Oh yeah, we can modify some of these numbers later, so it shouldn't be a big issue otherwise. Yeah, why not? Let's do that 200. Sure, let's leave that at 65 to have a rough height of this part. And let's make all of that 340 total. Good. Okay, now we have our overall figure in here. So we can go over to revolve. I'm gonna choose that axis in there. So now you see how it's either a bongo or, if you're out of creativity, a potting plant as well. I go here to, okay. So this is what we have, even though I'm actually realizing I made a mistake because the angle piece was not supposed to go all the way there. So I'm gonna go back to sketch and edit this thing. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna come with my line. And now, yes, there we go. So now we can establish that as being maybe 35. Oh, yeah, good. I think this looks kind of decent. And there, I might potentially make this a little bit thicker. So, or actually, no, I'll leave this as 140. I might make that 300. Let's see. There we go. So now this should be fine. And now we can make the bottom of this thing hollow. So I'm going to do a fun exercise in here, which is instead of actually going for doing a usual shell or doing a usual extrusion, I'm going to do a revolved cut. So how do you do that? Well, actually, we could do a revolved cut, or I could go back to my original sketch, which is this one right here, and make that I'll make that a construction line. I'll make this a construction line too. I'm gonna come here with my line. Let's see. I'm gonna make it hollow directly from here. Now let me just modify some of the numbers. Good. So yeah, we can make that like 15. That was a nice thick piece of wood. There, we make it cut there. We go all the way like that. And honestly, yeah, we could make it go up just like this. Perfect. And then we can say that we want the distance between that line and that line to be also 15. That way it's like a nice uniform shade. But then I can finish it there. Good. Fully shaded. I click on OK. Now, obviously, this is not going to work because I need to. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Yes. Because I'm going to edit my axis of symmetry. So instead, I'm going to use that line. Let me see. Answer yes. Let me just delete this for a minute. Let me show this again. Let's do a revolve along here. There we go. Okay. So now you see how it's hollow. Excellent. So we're doing good progress actually with all of this stuff in here. So now we can start to beautify some parts of this. So you see how here in the base plate, you have, actually let's start first by adding the black piece. So how would you do that? Well, I'm gonna go here to sketch over on, actually before I do, I'll make that round. So I'll go here to round. So we know that that is 10, which means I'll make that 5. And I'll make that 5. That way it's fully rounded like that. Great. Step number 1. Step number 2 is doing a sketch over in that face. And we kind of want to make it go. Let me see. I'm just trying to think. I have an idea of something I want to try. So I want to make the distance between this and that. I'm going to make it 5. Very good, but then I want to make an extrusion from here. And I think that that might work out kind of nicely after I do a certain cut. So I'll come here and then I will make another circle. It's gonna come, yeah, roughly like that. And then we can make honestly the same distance as, oh, no, D between that and that. And let me get rid of that one. And let's make that 5. Good. And then we can add that little border piece in there. That shouldn't be too difficult. But let's bring this up roughly up to maybe halfway there. So extrude, let's say 20, no more. I don't remember how much height we had left. Maybe 35. Good. Now what I'm trying to realize is how much of a gap there's actually there. And the reality is that maybe I should make this piece in here, I should contract this a little bit more. So I'm gonna go over to my original revolve and adjust some pieces, some parts in here. Maybe I don't want that to be 25. I want that to be 5 plus 5. So I'll actually make that 10. And meanwhile, I might actually make that, let's say 20. And maybe I'll make that 140. There we go. Maybe that should be 180. Let me see. Okay, that's fine. And what controls that distance in here? Oh, I see. That'll make that 150. I think that's gonna be fine. Oh, here do okay. There we go. Now we're talking. Now we're talking, but I will remove 5 centimeters from this. So I'll leave it at 30. Excellent. And now I'll go here to sketch over there. And I want to project that line and that line. Go to OK. And I want to remove material by 5 millimeters. Oh, I forgot to I cancel, yes. I need to project that line too. There we go. Okay. Extrusion, remove material, fire. Excellent. There we go. Now we should be fine. And now let's see. Although now that I think about it, maybe these are things that I could have done in the, to be honest, I think I'll just do it directly like that, where let me just delete that from here and let me get rid of that round because I'm just thinking ahead of myself. There we go. The round might make things more difficult later on when I'm looking at doing this thing. So I'll actually come here to the sketch, edit, And I will, there we go, make that a construction line. In fact, I'll make that and that construction lines too. Very good. Uh, yes, I'll need that. Excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna first start by doing an arch. I will go from here to here. And now that I realize maybe I might need a little bit more space in order to do this. Um, maybe I might need 15. I'm gonna bring this by, there we go, by 5. There we go. Now, yes. So, um, uh, uh, um, there we go. So I just wanted to create a little effect as if that piece was kind of sitting in here. But now I can go here to sketch, over to that face, and now we can project 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And we're gonna extrude that upwards by 15. Excellent. Oh, actually, no, 15 is, I meant 30. And there we go. So now we got, we're doing good progression here. So now let's figure out how to add that. That's gonna be fun. Those little pieces in there. So one potential approach for that is to draw, we could either do a 3D curve, which would be actually kind of a nice idea, or actually we might do a 3D curve. Let me think. So suppose that we need to create first a plane. So let's start by doing a plane that will be parallel to this one by, let's say, no, 50 is too little. Let's say 180. I think that looks decent. Uh, yeah, I think that should be fine. I'll do 180. If anything, I'm gonna change things as we go. I'll do a sketch over in this plane. So now what we need to figure out is a projection of that line, and really, yeah, that line is fine. I will do okay. So let's make those two construction, even though we need to do, I want to do 2 lines in here because one of them has to be 5 millimeters. That way, yes, that is exactly where that circle would begin. So we have to start drawing something. So let me go here to line. Then I'm gonna come down here like this. I'm gonna draw, so I'm gonna draw roughly the outline of what that piece would look like. It won't be perfect, right? But at least it will be something. So I'll go here to 20, then we'll make that 15. And then what I might do is, honestly, if I want it rounded, yes, I think I might need to draw another line like that, which will make, let's say 5. You will see why this will be important in a minute. So we're gonna leave this as is, so just from here, well there, from there, and then it will kind of continue going up Okay, let me go with my line. We'll go like that, and then I need to, no, there we go. I need to kind of delete the segment there. Excellent, there we go. I mean, that looks kind of organic, to be honest. Very good. So I got part of what we want in here, but we also need to go 1, 2, and then mirror this around here. Excellent. So we got one thing. Now, another thing that we need to do is like a sketch that would be really in this phase. So I need to go over to plane over here, and I want to make a plane that will be, that was it, 15 or negative 15, really. There we go. Okay. Excellent. So now do a sketch on that plane, and let's see whether I can project those lines. Okay. That is kind of what I needed. And then let's see whether I can project these 2 circles. Good. And now I'm gonna come with my line, and I will do something like this. Excellent. And then we can make this 20. So into our figure, maybe 19 actually, as a matter of fact. Okay. So let me try something. We'll see whether this will work or not. I'll go here to tattoo, then to curve, and then we'll start by drawing a point there. Then, honestly, I could do up to there, then here, then there, then there, then here, and then there. Okay, actually, that doesn't look bad at all. And I kind of like the organic feel with, the way that is splined in there. So you can click on OK. So now technically, if we go to the command sweep in here, now this is where I have to formally introduce what we'll do. So if you click on sweep and you have a profile like that one being drawn out, what you can do is go here to that and then click on sketch. So you have a profile you want to follow, and then I can draw, for instance, like a little circle, right? And I can say that I want that circle thickness to be 10. And then if I click on OK, well, it generates something that goes like around this thing. Now, this is not quite touching, which is what I would have to figure out. And yeah, it like kind of stays true. Maybe that's too thick and maybe that's too low. So we can play around with some of the numbers. If I go back to the sketch, I could make that 8 as an example. Go here to OK. Let me see that. Okay, that is a little bit better. But now what I'm gonna do is I'll play around with some of these numbers in here. For instance, when building the spline, yes, and I might. So let's go back to that sketch. Let me go over to, let's make that 18 actually. But I'm wondering whether I should have chosen that point as well. So I'm gonna actually extend that. I'll make that 3. There's a very tiny amount. Oh, make that 3 as well. And now with our spline, maybe I might bring things a little bit closer. So let's edit this original sketch. No, I think it's that one. There we go. Now instead, let's say that we want that to be 30, and then let's make that 30 as well. Maybe 35. So how would the shape look like? Okay, it looks a little bit better, but I wouldn't say perfect. Let me edit this. Let's make that 10. But it's still touching. So I'm gonna see whether I can go over to my original curve. And let me see whether I can add a point, which is gonna be that one. I wanna delete all of them. All right, perfect. So at least we figured out one of these hooks in there. Then what we could already start to do is we can go here to axis, and I'm gonna bring an axis that will be right there. Actually, in fact, I might need to bring it before anything else. So we could click on sweep one, go to pattern, and then go here to where it says axis. So we'll revolve it around there, and I can say 4, yes. So it should generate 4 of these. So you see, at least that seems to be nicely done in there. Good. But now we have to continue doing the next step, which is going to be adding the little hook piece. So if we look at this over here, then there's like a little like metallic brass piece that seems to be coming off. So we can add that. So we can do a little sketch here and add like a little like a little piece. So let's do that. And now that we've done this, we can add this little metal bracket that's gonna go all the way up to here. And we can design it on this particular plane. So we'll design like a little shape that goes, and then it just locks inside. So let's do it. Already, so I was just playing around, trying to get the overall shape of the spline in here. I think this looks honestly quite decent. So now the steps that follow are super simple, which is adding just that little piece in there, that peg, that can be done super easily. And then mirroring all of this stuff. So what I'm gonna do right now very quickly is I'll design that part, and then I'll come back to you once I'm ready to mirror this thing. And then essentially we'll be done. So now that we have this thing, we just have to do that little wooden piece that goes in there. So the approach to do that is to go here to a sketch over in this face. And now I just need to draw a rectangular line, a line that really will go like this. Let me just draw at a 45-degree angle. So yeah, let's make that 135. Very good, yeah, that is. And suppose, and we'll make the length of this, that way that's gonna be where our plane will start or end, it depends. Let's see, let's make that 300. That's a little bit too much. Let's say 250, say 240. No, 240. Okay, suppose that is roughly what you want. So you go here to OK, and then you go over to plane, point and line. You create this plane in here, then you go to sketch. And now what we can do is go here to a construction line, draw a line that will go roughly here. And now you can say that, all right, you want that to be 150. So if you look in here, yes, that is like roughly at that height. So what we have to do is draw a rectangle. That this is gonna be maybe like that. Possibly I might need to make that a little bit taller, and this maybe 100. That which I know not too thick of a piece. Let's do maybe that 170, and let's make that 120. I think 70 looks roughly okay. So now the key is that we go here with the extrude and we say in the opposite direction, just like that. Good. So now that you have that drawn out, but you can start telling yourself, well, maybe the dimensions don't work out that well. So we go back here, so you can bring that down to 150. And that looks a little bit better, to be honest. Okay, I think that's fine. Now, if we look at this, let me just edit. We need to send it more, so let's do 130. The problem is that obviously, yes, it's getting stuck in there. So I need to figure out, well, what's an appropriate amount that wouldn't come out. So I can either play around or I can get rid of that using a revolved CAD, which I can show you like how to do. Because if I do 100, you see that. So you know what I'll do? Let's do 150 as an example, right? I'll go here to OK. So what I'm gonna do is a sketch that's gonna be on that plane. Good. And what I have to do very quickly is I have to do a projection of, actually I might not even, yeah, I'll bring that line and I'll bring that line. So I'll come with a projection of that. Then I'll do a line that will come like this, another one that will come like that. So now what we can do is go here to OK, and then go to revolve. We're gonna select that axis, but really we don't want to do this fit, we're gonna do a remove. See that how that appears in this frame. Okay, so let's do the last step, which is the moment of truth. Can we mirror all of this stuff to the other side? And then we can add more details like fillets and chamfers. So what we'll do is select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And to my knowledge, there's no, purposely, because of what we learned last time, there's no chamfers, there's no fillets. So hopefully there shouldn't be an error with this. We go to mirror, and we'll select that face. And okay, it seems to be doing something. I go here to okay. Okay, that's actually not bad at all. So let's minimize some of this stuff. Let's hide them. Good. Maybe it's a good PSA. As I always say, let's call this to save your file. And now we have to play around with this, which is, I'm gonna go back to our edit definition. Actually, not even edit the definition. I need to go back to that sketch. And instead of making that 240, let's make that 200. So there you get like a more, honestly, they're pretty close one from the other one. So I might need even need to do even closer than that. So let's say 185. There you go. I think that's actually pretty decent. But very nice. So now what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna color this and I'm gonna add fillets wherever I need it to finish this up. And then I'll come back to you to wrap this up. Alrighty, folks, this is it. I think these are the completed bongos. It was a fun activity, honestly. It hadn't really, we employed essentially all of the commands that we had planned for the day, which was the mirroring, the circular pattern, and we added obviously the sweep as a bonus in here. So I hope you enjoyed it, that you were able to follow along, and I'll see you next time for the next session. Bye bye.